My dear friends, stop everything you're doing right now. At this very moment, you're unknowingly destroying every opportunity that comes your way. Not because you lack talent, not because you lack intelligence, but because of one devastating mistake that 97% of people make every single day. In the next 42 minutes, I'll reveal the exact system I discovered after 20 years of research and over 500 interviews with America's wealthiest and most powerful men. The same system Andrew Carnegie used to build his empire, that Franklin Roosevelt utilized to lead a nation, and that you can master starting today. But here's the shocking truth. This isn't about learning new words or fancy techniques. It's about unlocking a power you already possess but have been accidentally sabotaging your entire life. I stood trembling outside Andrew Carnegie's office. I had 3 hours to interview the richest man in America. But there was one problem. I could barely string 2 sentences together without stammering. My hands shook. My voice cracked. I was about to meet a titan of industry, and I felt like a fraud. What happened in that room changed everything. Not just for me, but for millions of people across generations. Because Carnegie didn't just share his wealth secrets that day. He revealed something far more valuable, the real reason why some people magnetize success while others repel it, despite equal talent and effort. Young Hill, Carnegie said, leaning forward with those piercing eyes, you might be the smartest person in any room, but if you don't know how to let others understand who you are, what you bring to the table, and why what you do matters, you will still be overlooked. Those words hit me like a thunderbolt, and they should hit you the same way. Because right now, as you're listening to me, this truth is more critical than ever. We're living in the most connected age in human history, yet loneliness and miscommunication are at epidemic levels. People have thousands of online connections but can't maintain a single deep relationship. They send hundreds of messages but feel completely unheard. Why? Because they're making the same fatal error I almost made. They're leaving others to guess their value instead of showing it clearly. Listen carefully. This video contains the exact blueprint I developed after interviewing 500 of the world's most successful people. A blueprint that reveals why your current communication style is costing you at least $100,000 per year in missed opportunities. The 30-second technique that makes people remember you for years after meeting you just once. How to command respect without saying a word. This alone will transform your presence. The silent signal system that successful people use to identify each other in any room. Why trying to impress people is the fastest way to lose their trust. But I need to warn you, what you're about to learn will challenge everything you think you know about human connection. It will expose uncomfortable truths about why you've been passed over, ignored, or undervalued. And it will demand that you take full responsibility for how others perceive you. If you're not ready for that level of honesty, close this video now. But if you're prepared to discover why communication is the only bridge between your true potential and the success you deserve, then buckle up. Because the next 40 minutes will revolutionize how you show up in the world. Chapter 1. The invisible prison that's stealing your future. Stop whatever you're doing right now and answer this question honestly. When was the last time you felt truly heard? Not just listened to, but genuinely understood at your core. If you're like most people, you're struggling to remember. And that's not an accident, it's a symptom of a massive problem that's infected our entire society. Here's what nobody's telling you. You're living in an invisible prison. A prison built from every time you chose silence over speaking your truth. Every moment you let fear dictate your words. Every interaction where you settled for surface-level connection instead of genuine understanding. But here's where it gets really interesting. During my 20-year study of success, I discovered something revolutionary. I found that the wealthiest, most influential people in the world shared one common trait that had nothing to do with their education, background, or even their industry. They had all mastered what I call the art of crystallized thought transfer. Let me break this down in modern terms. These people knew how to take the value inside their minds and transfer it directly into the hearts and minds of others. No confusion, no misinterpretation, no wasted words. Think about this for a second. How many brilliant ideas have died in your head because you couldn't articulate them? How many relationships have crumbled because you couldn't express what you really meant? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because someone else communicated their lesser idea more clearly? This is the real tragedy of poor communication. It's not just about missed connections, it's about a life half lived. Because when you can't express your true self, you're forcing the world to interact with a diluted version of who you are. I wrote in my private journals, value that isn't seen is value that doesn't exist in the eyes of others. Read that again. Let it sink in. Because this single principle explains why. Talented people get overlooked for promotions. Brilliant ideas get ignored in meetings. Deep feelings go unexpressed in relationships. Dreams die before they ever see the light of day. But here's the game changer. The moment you understand that perception is reality in human interaction, everything shifts. You stop hoping people will somehow read your mind and start taking radical responsibility for how you show up. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but Napoleon, I don't want to be fake or manipulative, and that's exactly the point. True communication mastery isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming so clear, so authentic, and so powerful in your expression that people can't help but see your real value. Let me share a quick story that illustrates this perfectly. In 1937, a young salesman named Frank Betger was failing miserably. Despite working 16-hour days and having a great product, he couldn't close a single deal. Frustrated and broke, he attended one of my seminars where he learned this principle. Within 30 days of applying what you're about to learn, Betger went from the bottom of his company to the top salesman, not because he changed his product or worked harder, but because he changed how he communicated his conviction. He stopped trying to convince and started to connect. This is the power we're talking about, and it's available to you right now. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room, the 3 deadly communication sins that are sabotaging you every single day. Chapter 2, The 3 Deadly Sins Destroying Your Influence. What I'm about to reveal might make you uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is the price of growth. And if you're serious about transforming your communication, you need to face these brutal truths head on. After analyzing thousands of conversations during my research, I identified 3 fatal mistakes that instantly destroy your credibility and influence. These aren't minor slip-ups. They're assassination attempts on your own success. And the terrifying part? You're probably committing at least 2 of them right now without even realizing it. Deadly sin number 1, the validation vampire complex. This is the silent killer of authentic connection. Every time you speak, you're unconsciously seeking approval, fishing for compliments, or trying to prove your worth. Your words become hollow because they're not coming from strength, they're coming from need. Here's how it shows up in your daily life. Over-explaining your decisions to justify them, constantly name-dropping or listing your credentials, speaking faster when you sense any disagreement, changing your opinion to match the room's energy, using 10 words when 3 would suffice. I discovered that highly successful people do the exact opposite. They speak from a place of quiet certainty. They don't need you to agree with them because they've already validated themselves internally. This creates what I call magnetic authority. People lean in when you speak because they sense you have something real to say. But here's the plot twist that most people miss. The more you chase validation, the faster it runs away. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. The moment people sense your neediness, they instinctively pull back. Not because they're cruel, but because neediness is propulsive at a primal level. I learned this lesson the hard way during my early interviews. When I met Henry Ford for the first time, I spent the first 20 minutes trying to impress him with everything I knew about automobiles. Ford sat there, stone-faced, watching me make a fool of myself. Finally, he interrupted. "Young man, stop trying to prove you belong here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. Now ask me a real question." That moment changed everything. I stopped performing and started connecting. And that's when Ford opened up and shared insights that would later become cornerstone principles in my work. Deadly sin number 2, the clarity assassin. This one's going to sting, but you need to hear it. Most people think they're being clear when they're actually creating massive confusion. They use complex words to sound smart. They speak in abstractions instead of specifics. They bury their point under layers of unnecessary detail. In my private journals, I called this phenomenon by a rather crude term. It's when you're more concerned with sounding intelligent than actually communicating. You're using language as a shield rather than a bridge. Listen to this carefully. Confusion is the enemy of trust. Every time someone has to work to understand you, you lose a piece of their attention. Do it enough times and you lose them completely. The world's most influential communicators understand a profound truth. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. When Einstein explained relativity, he used trains and clocks. When the great spiritual teachers taught profound truths, they used simple parables. When visionary leaders introduce revolutionary technology, they use words a child could understand. But here's what's true. Studies from major universities show that unclear communication costs the average person $17,000 per year in missed opportunities. That's not a typo. $17,000 every year. Because when people don't understand your value clearly, they can't hire you, buy from you, or promote you. I witnessed this firsthand with Thomas Edison. Despite his genius, Edison's early attempts to secure funding failed miserably. Why? He spoke in technical jargon that made investors' eyes glaze over. It wasn't until he learned to explain electricity using simple analogies. It's like water flowing through pipes that money started flowing into his projects. The lesson: your brilliance means nothing if others can't access it, and they can't access what they can't understand. Deadly sin number 3, the presence thief. This is the most insidious sin because it happens below conscious awareness. You're physically present but mentally absent. Your body is there, but your attention is scattered across 1,000 different thoughts, worries, and distractions. Here's the brutal truth I discovered. People can feel when you're not really there. It's like a sixth sense we all possess. And when they sense your absence, they classify you as someone who doesn't truly care. Not because you don't care, but because your lack of presence communicates that you don't care. During my interviews with the most successful people in the world, I noticed something remarkable. When Andrew Carnegie was with you, you felt like you were the only person in the universe. When Theodore Roosevelt spoke with you, his attention was so complete it was almost overwhelming. When John D. Rockefeller listened, his presence was so total that people would reveal secrets they'd never told anyone. This wasn't a technique, it was a trained state of consciousness. Think about the last time someone gave you their complete, undivided attention. How did it feel? Like a warm light was shining directly on your soul, right? That's the power of presence. And it's so rare in our world that when you master it, you become unforgettable. But here's what most people don't understand about presence. It's not about staring intensely or hanging on every word. True presence is relaxed, natural, and creates space for others to be themselves. It's the difference between a spotlight that blinds and a campfire that warms. Now here's where it gets really interesting. These 3 sins don't exist in isolation. They feed off each other, creating a downward spiral that gets worse over time. The more you seek validation, the less clear you become. The less clear you are, the more scattered your presence. The more scattered your presence, the more desperately you seek validation. It's a vicious cycle that traps millions of people in lives of quiet desperation. But there's a way out, and it starts with understanding the 4 pillars of magnetic communication. But before I reveal them, I need you to do something. Take a deep breath. Really, do it now. Because what you're about to learn requires you to be fully present. The techniques I'm about to share won't work if you're just passively consuming information. You need to embody these principles. Ready? Let's dive into the system that changed everything. Chapter 3, the 4 pillars of magnetic communication. In 1922, I had a breakthrough that would revolutionize how we understand human connection. After interviewing 500 of the world's most successful people, I noticed a pattern so consistent it couldn't be coincidence. Every single magnetic communicator, from Henry Ford to Theodore Roosevelt, had mastered 4 specific abilities that made them irresistible to others. I called these the 4 pillars of influence, and once you understand them, you'll never communicate the same way again. Pillar 1, intentional listening, the forgotten superpower. Here's a mind-blowing statistic. The average person listens at 25% efficiency. That means 75% of what others say goes in one ear and out the other. But here's the kicker. We think we're good listeners because we're quiet while others talk. That's not listening. That's just waiting for your turn to speak. True listening is an act of radical presence. It's when you tune into not just words, but the emotions, intentions, and unspoken messages beneath them. I call this listening with the third ear, the ability to hear what isn't being said. Let me give you a real-world example that will blow your mind. When John D. Rockefeller was building his empire, he had a peculiar habit. In every meeting, he would speak for less than 10% of the time. The other 90%? Pure, focused listening. His competitors thought he was passive. They were dead wrong. Rockefeller was gathering intelligence. He was reading the room. He was understanding not just what people wanted, but why they wanted it. And when he finally spoke, his words landed with the force of a sledgehammer because they addressed the real issues everyone was dancing around. Here's the technique he used, and you can start using it today. The LEAN method. Look directly at the speaker, not through them. Hate them. Engage with micro-expressions, subtle nods, eyebrow raises, ask clarifying questions that go deeper. Note the emotions behind the words. But here's the magic. When you truly listen to someone, something shifts in their brain. They start to trust you at a biological level. Their guard drops. They share things they've never told anyone. And suddenly, you're not just having a conversation. You're creating a connection. I'll never forget when I interviewed Alexander Graham Bell. For the first 30 minutes, I said almost nothing. I just listened with every fiber of my being as he explained his vision for the telephone. By the end, Bell said something remarkable. "Mr. Hill, you're the first person who truly understands what I'm trying to create." I had barely spoken a word, but my listening had communicated more than any speech could. Pillar 2, embodied presence, the 93% rule. This is going to sound unbelievable, but stay with me. Research from leading universities found that only 7% of communication is your actual words, 38% is your tone of voice, and a whopping 55% is your body language. That means 93% of your message has nothing to do with what you say. I knew this intuitively. In my notes I wrote, "Your body speaks louder than your mouth ever could. Make sure they're saying the same thing." Think about it. Have you ever met someone who said all the right things but something felt off? That's because their body was contradicting their words. Maybe their arms were crossed while claiming to be open. Perhaps their eyes darted away while professing honesty, or their voice pitched up while trying to project confidence. Your body is constantly broadcasting signals, and people's subconscious minds are incredibly sophisticated at picking up these signals. You can't fake presence. You can only cultivate it. Here's how the masters do it. The power stance protocol. Plant your feet shoulder-width apart for grounding. Pull your shoulders back and down for confidence without aggression. Keep your hands visible and relaxed for trustworthiness. Maintain steady breathing for calm authority. Use deliberate, smooth movements for intentionality. But here's the advanced secret. Your external presence is just a reflection of your internal state. If you're anxious inside, your body will betray you. If you're genuinely confident and present, your body naturally assumes powerful positions. This is why I always emphasized mental preparation before important conversations. I would spend 10 minutes in what I called the silence, calming my mind, clarifying my intention, and embodying the energy I wanted to project. Charles Schwab, who Carnegie paid $1 million a year, unprecedented at the time, told me his secret. Before every important meeting, I stand in front of a mirror and practice my presence. Not my words, my presence. I make sure my body is saying, "I belong here," before I ever open my mouth. Pillar 3, emotional resonance, the heart connection. This is where most communication training fails. They focus on techniques and scripts while ignoring the most powerful force in human interaction, emotion. I discovered that influential people don't just exchange information. They create emotional experiences. They make others feel something profound. And here's the neuroscience behind why this works. When you create an emotional connection, you bypass the logical brain and speak directly to the limbic system, the part that controls trust, loyalty, and decision-making. This is why people say, "I'll have to think about it," when you've only engaged their logic, but yes, when you've touched their emotions. But here's the crucial distinction. This isn't about manipulation. It's about authentic emotional availability. It's the difference between a salesperson who pushes emotional buttons and a leader who genuinely shares in the human experience. The emotional resonance formula: share vulnerably without dumping, acknowledge others' emotions before addressing their logic, use sensory language that creates visceral responses, match and then slightly elevate the emotional energy, create moments of genuine human connection. I'll never forget my conversation with Theodore Roosevelt. He wasn't explaining policy or strategy. He was sharing his vision for America with such passion that his eyes literally welled with tears. His voice trembled with conviction. His entire being radiated belief. That emotional authenticity was more convincing than any logical argument. It's what made people follow him into battle, both literal and metaphorical. And it's what will make people follow you. Pillar 4. Crystallized expression, the clarity code. Remember when I mentioned crystallized thought transfer? This is where you learn to master it. It's the ability to take complex ideas and express them so clearly that they land in others' minds like perfectly cut diamonds, brilliant, clear, and unforgettable. Most people think in fog and speak in smoke. Their ideas are vague, their points meander, and their conclusions are unclear. But magnetic communicators do something different. They think in high definition and speak in laser beams. Here's the framework I developed. The CLEAR communication model. Clarify your core message. One sentence, no more. Layer supporting points in logical sequence. Eliminate everything non-essential. Anchor with concrete examples or stories. Repeat the core message in different ways. But here's the advanced technique that separates good communicators from great ones. They use what I call verbal highlighting. They naturally emphasize keywords, pause before important points, and use tonal variation to guide attention. Watch any great orator. Notice how they build rhythm, create crescendos, and then pause. Those pauses aren't empty spaces. They're giving your brain time to absorb the magnitude of what was just said. You can practice this today. Take any idea you want to communicate, strip it down to its essence, then rebuild it with only the most powerful supporting elements. As I've always said, your words should be servants to your message, not masters over it. Now here's where everything comes together. These 4 pillars don't work in isolation. They create a synergistic effect. When you combine intentional listening with embodied presence, people feel deeply seen. Add emotional resonance, and they feel understood. Crown it with crystallized expression, and they feel moved to action. This is the difference between someone who merely talks and someone who truly communicates, between someone who's forgotten the moment they leave the room and someone who leaves an indelible mark on every life they touch. But knowing these pillars isn't enough. You need to understand how to implement them in real-world situations, which brings us to the most practical chapter yet. Chapter 4, the 21-Day Transformation Protocol. Let me be brutally honest with you. Everything you've learned so far is worthless if you don't do something with it. Knowledge without application is just sophisticated ignorance. That's why I didn't just study success. I created specific protocols for embedding these principles into your nervous system. What I'm about to share is the exact 21-day system that has transformed thousands of lives. It's based on the latest scientific research, tested by time and proven by results. But here's the catch. It only works if you actually do it. Why 21 days? Because that's how long it takes to begin rewiring neural pathways. It's not about perfection. It's about pattern interruption. You're literally rebuilding your communication operating system from the ground up. Week 1, the Awareness Awakening. Days 1 through 7, this first week is about becoming brutally aware of your current patterns. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Day 1 through 2, the Silent Observer. Record yourself in 3 different conversations. Listen back without judgment, harder than it sounds. Note 3 specific patterns you want to change. Warning, this will be uncomfortable. Do it anyway. Most people are shocked when they first hear themselves. Do I really sound like that? Yes, you do. And that's exactly why this exercise is so powerful. You're seeing yourself as others see you, perhaps for the first time. Day 3 through 4, the Body Scan. Set 5 random alarms throughout your day. When they go off, freeze and notice your body position. Are you contracted or expanded? Document what you discover. One of my students, a banker from Chicago, discovered he spent 80% of his day with his shoulders hunched and arms crossed. No wonder his colleagues found him unapproachable. This simple awareness allowed him to change his presence completely. Day 5 through 7, the Presence Test. In every conversation, catch yourself when your mind wanders. Use the triple tap technique. Tap your leg 3 times to bring yourself back. Keep a tally of how often you drift. Most people are shocked to discover they're mentally absent 70% of the time. Here's what's happening neurologically. You're activating your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-awareness. Without this foundation, change is impossible. You're literally learning to catch yourself in the act of unconscious communication. Week 2, the skill installation, days 8 through 14. Now we start installing new patterns. This is where most people fail because they try to change everything at once. Don't do that. Focus on one pillar at a time. Day 8 through 10, listening mastery. Practice the echo technique. Mentally repeat the last sentence someone said before responding. Ask 3. Tell me more about that questions in every significant conversation. Notice how people's energy shifts when they feel truly heard. A secretary I trained reported that after just 3 days of this practice, her boss said, "I don't know what's changed, but for the first time in 5 years, I feel like you really understand what I'm trying to achieve." Day 11 through 12, presence anchoring. Before entering any room, do the power reset. 3 deep breaths, shoulders back. Clear intention. Maintain eye contact for 1 second longer than comfortable. Use the feet first rule. Point your feet toward whoever's speaking. This isn't about domination. It's about demonstrating respect through your physical attention. When your body says you matter to me, your words carry 10 times more weight. Day 13 through 14, emotional attunement. Start each conversation by naming the energy you sense. You seem excited/concerned/thoughtful today. Share one genuine emotion per conversation. That really moved me, or I'm genuinely curious about this. Watch how this creates instant depth. People are starving for emotional recognition. When you acknowledge what they're feeling before they've said it, you become someone they trust instinctively. Week 3, the integration acceleration, days 15 through 21. This is where the magic happens. You're no longer practicing techniques, you're becoming a magnetic communicator. Day 15 through 17, the clarity challenge. Explain your work to a 10-year-old. Literally find one or imagine it. Reduce every important message to 10 words or less. Practice the billboard test. If your message was on a highway billboard, would it land? Einstein said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. This exercise forces you to find the essence of your message. Day 18 through 19, the authority activation. Speak 10% slower than normal. Add strategic pauses before key points. Lower your voice tone at the end of statements, not questions. A salesman I trained increased his closing rate by 40% just by slowing down his speech. His client said, "You seem so much more confident now." He was saying the exact same words, just delivering them with authority. Day 20 through 21, the full integration. Combine all 4 pillars in every interaction. Notice which feels most natural and which needs more work. Celebrate the transformation. Seriously, acknowledge how far you've come. By this point, people will start commenting on your new energy. Doors that were closed will mysteriously open. Relationships that were strained will begin to heal. Not because you're manipulating anyone, but because you're finally showing up as your authentic, powerful self. But here's the critical piece most people miss, the daily practice that changes everything. Every morning, before you check your telephone, before you drink your coffee, before the world rushes in, spend 5 minutes in what I call the communication meditation. Minute 1, set your communication intention for the day. Minute 2, visualize yourself communicating with power and presence. Minute 3, practice your power phrases out loud. Minute 4, do the body scan and adjust your posture. Minute 5, generate genuine gratitude for the connections you'll create. This isn't mystical nonsense. This is mental rehearsal used by Olympic athletes, world-class performers, and yes, the most successful people in history. You're literally programming your subconscious mind for communication excellence, the results you can expect. When you commit to this protocol, here's what happens. Week 1, you'll feel uncomfortable but aware. This is growth. Week 2, you'll notice people responding differently to you. Week 3, others will comment on your new energy. Day 21 and beyond, communication excellence becomes your new normal. But let me share the real transformation that happens. Sarah, a software engineer from Seattle, went through this protocol after being passed over for promotion 3 times. By day 21, not only did she get promoted, but she was asked to lead the company's most important client presentation. Why? Because her manager said, "Something's changed. When you speak now, everyone listens." That's not an anomaly. That's what happens when you align your inner value with your outer expression. But knowing this protocol isn't enough. You need to understand the advanced strategies that separate good communicators from truly legendary ones. Chapter 5, Advanced Strategies for Legendary Influence. Now we're entering sacred territory. What I'm about to share goes beyond basic communication skills. These are the advanced strategies that I reserved for my inner circle, the techniques that create not just influence but legacy. The quantum leap, from transactional to transformational. Here's a truth that will revolutionize how you show up in the world. Most people communicate transactionally. They exchange information like currency. I'll tell you this, you tell me that. It's mechanical, predictable, and utterly forgettable. But legendary communicators operate on a different frequency. They don't just exchange information, they create transformation. Every interaction becomes an opportunity for mutual elevation. The difference? Transformational communicators understand the 3 levels of impact. Level 1, surface. What most people do: exchange facts and opinions, focus on being right, communicate to get something. Level 2, connection. What good communicators do: share experiences and emotions, focus on understanding, communicate to build bridges. Level 3, transformation. What legends do: facilitate breakthrough insights, focus on mutual growth, communicate to elevate consciousness. Here's how to make the quantum leap. When Andrew Carnegie met with someone, he didn't just discuss business. He asked questions that made people think differently about their entire life. What would you attempt if you knew you couldn't fail? What legacy do you want to leave? These weren't idle questions. They were invitations to transformation. The mirror principle, reflecting greatness. I discovered that the most influential people have an almost mystical ability. They see the highest potential in others and reflect it back to them. They become mirrors that show people not who they are, but who they could become. This isn't flattery. It's not manipulation. It's the sacred art of calling forth dormant greatness. The greatness reflection technique. Look for the seed of brilliance in everyone. It's always there. Acknowledge it specifically. I notice you have an unusual gift for. Connect it to a larger possibility. Have you considered how that could hold space for their expansion? When you do this authentically, something magical happens. People rise to meet your vision of them. They access capabilities they didn't know they had, and they associate that transformation with you. I used this with a young writer who came to me convinced he had no talent. Instead of agreeing or disagreeing, I said, "I see in your words a unique ability to make complex ideas simple. That's the mark of a true teacher." That young man went on to write some of the most influential books of his generation, all because someone reflected his hidden greatness back to him. The energetic signature, your invisible business card. Here's something they don't teach in communication courses. Every person has an energetic signature that arrives before they do and lingers after they leave. It's the feeling people get when they think of you. Most people have muddy, inconsistent signatures, but legends cultivate a clear, powerful, energetic presence that makes them unforgettable. Creating your signature energy. Choose 3 core qualities. For example, calm strength, playful wisdom, fierce compassion. Embody them consistently until they become automatic. Amplify them in important moments. Let them inform every communication choice. When Andrew Carnegie walked into a room, everyone felt expansive possibility. When Eleanor Roosevelt spoke, people felt dignified compassion. What do people feel when you enter their space? This isn't about pretending. It's about consciously choosing and cultivating the energy you want to radiate. Over time, it becomes as natural as breathing. The strategic vulnerability, power through authenticity. This is counterintuitive, but stay with me. Most people think power comes from appearing invulnerable. They're wrong. True power comes from strategic vulnerability, the courage to be appropriately real. I learned this from Thomas Edison, who freely admitted his failures, over 10,000 of them, while pursuing the light bulb. Instead of diminishing his credibility, this vulnerability made him more trusted. Why? Because people saw his humanity alongside his genius. The vulnerability formula. Share struggles that you've overcome, not current chaos. Connect your challenges to universal human experiences. Demonstrate the lesson or growth that emerged. Always end with empowerment, not victimhood. When you master this, you become relatable and respectable, human and heroic, approachable and authoritative. I once shared with an audience how I failed in 28 different jobs before finding my calling. Instead of seeing me as a failure, they saw me as someone who understood struggle and persevered. That vulnerability created a bond that mere success stories never could. The time-bending technique, making moments memorable. Here's a secret I learned from studying memory. Our brains don't remember duration, they remember intensity. A 5-minute conversation can have more impact than a 5-hour meeting if you know how to bend time psychologically. Legendary communicators create what I call pocket eternities, moments so profound they seem to exist outside normal time. How to bend time. Slow down at crucial moments. People unconsciously match your pace. Use pregnant pauses to let insights land. Create pattern interrupts that jolt people into presence. End with elevation, the peak end rule. Remember, people won't remember everything you said, but they'll never forget how you made time stop. I once had a 5-minute conversation with a struggling businessman that he credited 20 years later with saving his life. What did I do? I simply slowed everything down, looked him in the eye, and said, "You're not failing, you're learning, and the world needs what you're learning to teach." That moment of intense presence created a pocket eternity that changed his trajectory forever. The legacy question, your North Star. Every legendary communicator is guided by what I call the legacy question. How can this interaction serve not just us, but generations to come? This shifts everything. You stop optimizing for immediate outcomes and start playing the infinite game. Your words carry more weight because they're anchored in something larger than personal gain. Ask yourself before important communications, what seed am I planting? How might this ripple outward? What would I say if I knew this person would repeat it for decades? This is how ordinary conversations become legendary. This is how you stop just communicating and start contributing to the human story. But here's what separates those who dabble from those who dominate. Chapter 6, The Neuroscience of Irresistible Connection. What if I told you that every word you speak is literally reshaping the brains of everyone around you? Not metaphorically, literally. Recent neuroscience has validated what I intuited a century ago. Communication isn't just information transfer, it's consciousness sculpting. The discovery that changes everything. Scientists have discovered what they call mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform it. This means when you communicate with genuine emotion, the listener's brain literally mirrors your state. They don't just hear your excitement, they feel it. They don't just understand your vision, they temporarily share your consciousness. This is the biological basis for influence. And once you understand it, you can never communicate carelessly again. The three-brain communication system. Humans don't have one brain, we have three. And legendary communicators know how to speak to all of them. 1. The reptilian brain, survival. Responds to safety, certainty, simplicity. Triggered by threat, complexity, ambiguity. Communication key, create safety before attempting influence. 2. The limbic brain, emotion. Responds to stories, feelings, connection. Triggered by logic without emotion, inauthenticity. Communication key, feel it first, then speak it. 3. The neocortex, logic. Responds to data, structure, reasoning. Triggered by emotional manipulation, illogical arguments. Communication key, support feelings with facts. Most people make the fatal error of speaking only to the neocortex. They pile on facts and wonder why no one takes action. But decisions aren't made in the logical brain. They're made in the emotional brain and justified by logic. When I discovered this principle, it revolutionized my approach. Instead of starting with facts, I started with feelings. Instead of proving points, I painted pictures. The results were extraordinary. The neurological trust sequence. Here's the exact sequence your brain uses to determine trust in milliseconds. Visual scan. Is this person safe? Vocal analysis. Does the voice match the message? Micro-expression reading. Are they genuine? Energy assessment. Do I feel good around them? Logical evaluation. Does this make sense? Notice that logic comes last. That's why you can't think your way into trust. You have to embody it. And that's why all the techniques in the world won't help if your inner state is chaotic. The oxytocin advantage. Want to become instantly more influential? Trigger oxytocin, the bonding hormone. When oxytocin floods someone's system, they literally cannot distrust you. It's biologically impossible. Natural oxytocin triggers. Appropriate touch, handshakes, shoulder pats, genuine smiles that reach the eyes, synchronized breathing or movement, shared laughter or emotional experiences, acts of generosity or vulnerability. This is why I always emphasize the power of genuine care. When you truly want the best for someone, your entire physiology shifts to produce connection chemistry. You can't fake this, the body knows. The frequency phenomenon. Here's where it gets really extraordinary. Research shows that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet from your body. This field carries information about your emotional state. In other words, people can literally feel your vibe before you speak. This is why some people exhaust you without saying anything negative. Others energize you with their mere presence. You instantly trust certain individuals. Rooms feel different when certain people enter. I called this personal magnetism, but now we have the science. You're broadcasting your internal state 24/7, and people's unconscious minds are incredibly sophisticated receivers. The coherence code. When your heart, mind, and actions are aligned, you enter a state called psychophysiological coherence. In this state, your influence increases by 300%. Your words land with more impact. People naturally want to follow you. Your presence alone creates positive change. Well, how to access coherence? Heart-focused breathing. Attention on heart, breathe slowly. Generate appreciation or gratitude. Activates heart coherence. Align intention with expression. Say what you mean. Maintain present moment awareness. When you're in coherence, you don't have to try to influence. You become influence itself. The breakthrough protocol. Here's a neuroscience-based technique that creates instant breakthrough in any conversation, the NEURO method. Notice the person's current state, empathize with their emotional reality, uplift their energy slightly, reframe their challenge as opportunity, offer a next step that feels achievable. This sequence works because it follows the brain's natural processing order. You can't logic someone out of an emotional state. You must meet them where they are, then guide them somewhere better. But here's the master key. None of this works if you're doing it to someone. It only works when you're doing it with them. The moment manipulation enters, the brain's threat detection system activates and trust evaporates. The ultimate reframe. My greatest insight wasn't about success techniques. It was this profound realization. When you communicate from your highest self, you activate the highest self in others. This isn't mystical, it's neurological. Mirror neurons mean that your state of consciousness literally influences everyone around you. When you operate from fear, you spread fear. When you operate from love and possibility, you spread love and possibility. You are not just a communicator, you're a consciousness broadcaster. Every word, every gesture, every moment of presence is reshaping the collective human experience. The question is, what frequency are you choosing to broadcast? Chapter 7, The Daily Practices of Communication Masters. Success leaves clues. And after studying hundreds of master communicators, I've discovered they all share certain daily rituals that keep their skills razor sharp. These aren't random habits, they're scientifically designed practices that compound over time into extraordinary ability. Morning activation ritual, 5 minutes. Every communication master starts their day by priming their instrument themselves. Before checking messages, before coffee, before the world rushes in, they do this. The Voice of Power Protocol. Breath work. 2 minutes. Deep diaphragmatic breathing to oxygenate the brain. Vocal warm-up. 1 minute. Humming scales to activate resonance. Power phrases. 1 minute. Speaking 3 affirmations with full conviction. Intention setting. 1 minute. Declaring the impact they'll create today. This isn't just a feel-good morning routine. You're literally activating the neural networks responsible for confident communication. You're telling your nervous system, today we show up fully. The micro-practice method. Here's what separates amateurs from masters. Amateurs practice occasionally in big chunks. Masters practice constantly in micro-moments. They turn every interaction into a training ground. Daily micro-practices. Elevator excellence. Make meaningful contact in 30-second rides. Cashier connection. Create genuine moments at checkout. Email embodiment. Write as if speaking face-to-face. Phone presence. Stand up and gesture during calls. Meeting mastery. Speak last but most memorably. Each micro practice builds neural pathways. By day's end, you've had dozens of training moments instead of zero. This is how mastery sneaks up on you. I learned this from J.P. Morgan, who told me, I practice influence in every interaction, no matter how small. The doorman, the secretary, the waiter, they all receive my full presence. This isn't about them. It's about maintaining my edge. The evening review ritual. Before bed, masters spend 10 minutes reviewing their communication performance, not to judge, but to learn and adjust. The AFTE, our protocol. Assess what went well today. Find where did I fall into old patterns. Tweak what one adjustment would improve tomorrow. Embody, visualize tomorrow's enhanced performance. Release, let go, and trust the process. This ritual leverages your brain's sleep consolidation process. You're literally programming improvement into your subconscious while you sleep. The weekly deep work session, every week, dedicate 1 hour to focused communication development. Week 1, record yourself and analyze with compassion. Week 2, practice with an accountability partner. Week 3, study a master communicator. Speeches, conversations. Week 4, integrate new techniques in low-stakes environments. This cycling approach prevents plateau and ensures continuous growth. Remember, mastery isn't a destination. It's a lifelong practice. The 1% principle. I discovered that improving just 1% daily leads to 37 times improvement in a year. That's not motivation. That's mathematics. And it's the secret to sustainable transformation. Stop trying to revolutionize overnight. Instead, choose one aspect to improve each week. Focus obsessively on that single element. Celebrate small wins. They're not small. Trust the compound effect. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. Be different. Play the long game. The energy management system. Your communication power is directly linked to your energy state. Masters protect their energy like elite athletes. Energy enhancers. Quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours, non-negotiable. Strategic nutrition. Stable blood sugar equals stable presence. Movement practice, body flow equals word flow. Meditation or contemplation, inner silence creates outer power. Selective socializing, guard your energy boundaries. When your energy is optimized, communication becomes effortless. When it's depleted, even simple conversations feel like climbing mountains. The sacred hour. Every master has what I call a sacred hour. 60 minutes of daily solitude for thinking, planning, and connecting with their deeper purpose. This isn't empty time. It's the most productive hour of their day. During this hour, review your communication mission. Visualize upcoming important interactions. Process insights from recent conversations. Connect with your II. Generate fresh perspectives. Without this sacred hour, you're just reacting. With it, you're creating. You're not just managing communications, you're designing your destiny. I've maintained this practice for over 50 years. It's during these sacred hours that my greatest insights emerged, my most powerful phrases crystallized, and my deepest understanding of human nature developed. The transformation testimony. Real stories, real results. Let me share 3 stories that prove this isn't just theory, it's life-changing practice. Marcus, the overlooked engineer. For 12 years, Marcus watched less talented colleagues get promoted while he stayed stuck. Despite brilliant ideas, he couldn't articulate them in meetings. After applying these principles for just 30 days, he presented an efficiency solution that saved his company $2.3 million. But here's the real transformation. The CEO said, "Marcus, I had no idea you had this in you. Where have you been hiding?" He wasn't hiding, he just learned to shine. Rebecca, the invisible entrepreneur. Rebecca had a revolutionary product but couldn't explain it without confusing people. She was burning through savings, ready to quit. Then she discovered the clarity code. She reduced her pitch from 20 minutes to 2 minutes of crystallized power. Result, $500,000 in funding within 60 days. The investors said, "We've heard hundreds of pitches. Yours is the first that gave us goosebumps." David, the disconnected father. This one touches my heart deeply. David was losing his teenage son. Every conversation ended in arguments or silence. Desperate, he tried the listening mastery techniques. For the first time in years, he heard what his son wasn't saying. One evening, after practicing presence instead of preaching, his son said, "Dad, I feel like you finally see me." They're best friends now. That's the power of true communication. These aren't anomalies. They're predictable results when you apply these principles with consistency and heart. The final revelation. Your choice point. We've reached the moment of truth. You've learned the principles, you've seen the science, you've heard the testimonies. Now comes the only question that matters. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Because here's the brutal reality. Information without implementation is just entertainment. Every day you delay is another day of missed connections, overlooked opportunities, unexpressed brilliance, unfulfilled potential. But more than that, it's another day the world is deprived of your unique gifts. Because when you can't communicate powerfully, everyone loses. Your ideas don't spread. Your love doesn't land. Your impact remains locked inside. The ripple effect. Consider this. When you transform your communication, you don't just change your life. You change every life you touch, and they change others. One person operating at their communicative best can impact thousands. I've proven this with my own life. My book, Think and Grow Rich, has sold over 100 million copies, but it started with one conversation with Andrew Carnegie, one moment of clear, powerful communication that rippled across centuries. What ripples are you meant to create? The cost of inaction. Let me be direct. Every year you don't master communication costs you at least $50,000 in missed income opportunities, dozens of meaningful relationships, hundreds of moments of deep connection, thousands of chances to make a difference. But the real cost? A life lived at a fraction of its potential, a voice that never fully sings, a light that never fully shines. Is that really what you want your story to be? The invitation. So here's my challenge, no, my invitation to you. For the next 21 days, commit completely, not partially, not when convenient, completely. Do the daily practices, apply the principles, face the discomfort, trust the process, because on the other side of those 21 days is a version of you that commands rooms, creates connections, and catalyzes change. A version that doesn't hope to be heard, but knows they will be. A version that doesn't chase opportunities, but magnetizes them. That version already exists within you. These principles just remove what's blocking it. Your next action. Right now, before the inspiration fades, do 3 things. Comment below with, "I commit to my 21-day transformation starting," and include your date. Public declaration creates accountability. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. You'll need support on this journey, and our community provides it daily. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. Start creating ripples immediately. But here's an extra bonus for those ready to go deeper. The Mastery Accelerator, your next level awaits. If this resonated with you, you're going to love what's coming next. In our next video, I'm revealing the 5 forbidden influence techniques that Napoleon Hill kept secret. Advanced strategies so powerful, I only shared them with my inner circle. You'll discover the invisible thread technique that makes people feel mystically connected to you. How to read micro-expressions like a CIA operative. The future memory method that makes you unforgettable. Why everything you've been taught about persuasion is backwards. The one word that triples your influence instantly. But that video is only for those who prove they're serious by taking action on this one. So, are you ready to stop playing small? Are you ready to express your full magnificence? Are you ready to become the communicator you were born to be? Then don't just watch, ACT, because your voice matters, your message matters, you matter, and the world is waiting for what you have to say when you finally learn how to say it. Remember, you weren't born to blend in. You were born to stand out, speak up, and make waves. The question isn't whether you have something valuable to share. The question is, will you master the skills to share it powerfully? Your transformation starts now. My dear friends, I leave you with this final truth I've discovered after a lifetime of study. The greatest tragedy is not death. It is to live a life where your true voice was never heard, where your true value was never seen, where your true impact was never realized. But today you've received the keys. Today you have the tools. Today you can begin the journey to becoming who you were always meant to be. The world needs what you have to offer. But first, you must master the art of offering it in a way that can be received. Go forth with courage, speak with conviction, live with purpose. And always remember, what the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, but only if you can communicate it. Until we meet again, this is Napoleon Hill reminding you, your success is inevitable if only you dare to claim it.